Welcome, I'm Rogers Anderson, Williamson County Mayor, and as we travel around Williamson County today and talk to different folks as we do on this show, today we have the opportunity to talk to our CVB, that's Convention Visitors Bureau Director, Ellie Chen, and thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
It's always great to have you on talking about the positive things that go on in the tourism area of Williamson County. But before we do that, let's kind of talk a little bit about Ellie. Where'd you come from? How in the world did you ever get involved in this industry of the tourism side?
I grew up in Illinois, and my first job was producing events, and that's how I fell into tourism and hospitality. So I started producing events, and I was in Chicago, and I had an opportunity to move to Nashville and be the second hire to help start the Nashville Sports Council. And at the time, the Nashville Sports Council was a division of the Convention and Visitors Bureau in Nashville. And so that's when I, full steam ahead, got into tourism and hospitality. And it was such a great and wonderful experience. I got to serve on the committees to bring the Titans and the Predators to town, get the Bridgestone Arena built and the Titans Coliseum built, and just a really unique and great way to start my career.
That was 20 years ago.
It was.
You must have started to work at 9. I'll go ahead and throw that plug in. But when you think back, that's been 20 years ago, and the history on that, I'm sure has been written many times over. So I'll try to recall it. There was a huge push to get football, but also in that, woven in at that period of time, was this thing called hockey.
Yeah.
That for people in Middle Tennessee, unless you had come down from the north, really didn't follow hockey at all.
We did a lot of hockey education, Hockey 101. What does blue line mean? What does icing mean? How many players are there? How long is a game? People kept saying, how long is a game? How many games are there? So there was a lot of education to do, and it was really a unique experience to work with the NHL and the NFL at the same time, because both these teams were coming in at the same time. And I was definitely young in my career when this was happening, and I remember one day I called my mom, and I was all worried and panicked, and she's like, what's wrong? And I said, this is so cool. I mean, I grew up in Chicago. We've had our teams forever. I said, what if this is the coolest thing I ever do in my career, and it's early in my career, and then it's just going to get boring? And she just started laughing, and she said, would you just hang up the phone and enjoy it and don't worry about things like that? So, and I've been blessed, and I've had an amazing career. So it's just been a really fun ride.
You worked there, then you left.
I did.
You went someplace else.
Yeah, I got married, and I moved to New York City. And I worked for a marketing event company in New York City, where I had an opportunity to work on the Olympic bid that New York was trying to get the Olympics in 2012. So I worked on that bid and helped the city with that bid. I mean, not as successful as we were with the Predators and the Titans because we didn't win, but that was a unique experience too, and coming from Nashville, which was still kind of a small town at the time, and going to New York City was interesting. And in Nashville, when we were trying to get the Predators and the Titans, we did a lot of rallies. We were getting people out to get them excited because it was a referendum to get the football stadium built, and people came out and they were really excited, and they had a lot of pride in their city. And then I moved to New York City, and the announcement, when people win the Olympics, they'll show thousands of people cheering, yay, we won the Olympics. So we said, well, where are we going to do our announcement? And we decided to do it in Rockefeller Center, in the plaza of Rockefeller Center. And we said, well, how are we going to get people out? And I'm in this meeting with like 30 people, right? And here I am from Nashville. And I said, well, won't they just come out because of city pride? Because this is what I'm used to. And they laughed me out of that room. And they said, oh, you don't get it. New Yorkers don't want the Olympics. There's like a handful. So that's why we picked Rockefeller Plaza, because it's right next to where the Today Show is filmed. So we knew there would be a lot of tourists, and they would wander over and see what was happening. And it doesn't matter when you win if it's all New Yorkers or not New Yorkers, as long as you got a good crowd. So, it was a lesson learned of just, city pride. And I think New Yorkers have a lot of pride in their city, but traffic up there is crazy, commutes are crazy, and they're like, we really want the Olympics. That's going to shut down a bunch of our roads and even impede everything more. So I don't know if a lot of New Yorkers were real sad when they lost it, but it was a really interesting experience.
So you migrated here to Williamson County.
I did.
Been here 3 years, 4 years?
3 years. July was my three-year anniversary.
and done a wonderful job. You've seen our county in conjunction with the state of Tennessee, and as your industry goes, so much of the emphasis at the state level was put on additional funding to encourage and advertise the state of Tennessee, but at each county, we'll say, there's an emphasis through their own directors and appointees that oversee your operation, and as you're really responsible to them. You're not an elected spot. You're not part of government. You have to stand on your own 2 feet, and through the funding mechanisms of the hotel motel tax.
Correct.
So you have a board that you report to, and the 3 years you've been here has just been phenomenal success, and particularly with the latest announcement that you've had just in the last 30 days, the growth within Williamson County of tourism dollars.
It's really been a fun and exciting time because we have such a great community of people that want to work together and see success. And when you have that behind you, not only the board and you and other government officials, but just as a whole, people here are really excited about success and how we can grow and grow, strategically and smart. So we just released our numbers. We just got our 2016 numbers. It takes a while to get them in, but our visitor count was 1.43 million. That was a 9.4% increase over 2015. So we saw a nice growth there. But I think one of the reasons of that, we know from our research that the #1 reason a leisure traveler comes in is to go to Main Street in Franklin. So that's great, and that's what's getting them here. But when they're here, what we're doing now is we're sending them all over the county because there's really neat development and growth happening in Nolensville and Fairview and Thompson Station, and Arrington has the Vineyard. And they've got a whole row of really cool shops out there now. So once we get them here, we're keeping them here. We're sending them to Brentwood to go shopping at our only REI in Middle Tennessee or at Nordstrom Rack or some of the new restaurants up there. So, I tell our staff all the time, I'm like, let's get them here and then let's keep them here and let's let them have fun and enjoy themselves, spend a lot of money with us, and then we can send them on home. So that's been wonderful for us.
So how much of our business, almost 10% growth year over year that you just reported, a little over 9%. How much of our business is coming out of Davidson County with the growth that they're having up in their area?
Yeah, about 50%. And we're getting out of Nashville, yeah.
Which is interesting to me. Sometimes we do compete.
Sure.
It's like everything we do compete for people's dollars. But when you think about the people that go into Davidson County or to Rutherford County or Murray County, the Civil War sites over in Rutherford County, I know it's very, very, very popular. To think that we can get them to come out here for Main Street or any of the other activities is a phenomenal feat. Many, many counties, cities tried to do that and are not successful. What's our magic ticket?
Well, I think collaboration is key. Right, you mentioned Rutherford County, so we just recently met with them because they have amazing Civil War sites, and so do we. So we said, well, if we've got them and that's what they're interested in and they're doing a day trip where they're not staying the night, well, we're going to send them over to you so they can understand that story as a whole in Middle Tennessee. So we have great relationships with Rutherford County. We have really good relationships in Nashville, not only with the Nashville Convention and Visitors Corp, but also with the Predators and the Titans and Country Music Hall of Fame. So there's a lot of different ways that we're working with Nashville for them to send people to us. We have a visitor center here. Our visitor center staff goes up to Nashville twice a year, and they visit every concierge in the city, whether it's a hotel or an attraction or the Music City Center. And they say, don't forget about Franklin and Williamson County when your guests are looking for something to do. So those hotels and attractions are sending people to us as well. So once they know what their visitor is looking for, they'll send them out our way. But I'll tell you this, when I heard about this position, and Butch Spiriton, who runs the Nashville CVB, called me and he said, Williamson County Convention Visitors Bureau president position just opened. You should think about applying. And I have worked for Butch for many years. We've stayed good friends. And I said, I'm not going to apply if we're not going to work together because we're too close to Nashville, and I know they're getting business out of Nashville. And he just started laughing because as tourism professionals, we're trained to be selfish, right? Because we want people to come in and we want them to stay and we want them to pay hotel motel tax and we want them to shop and we want them to eat. So we really want to keep them in our destination, right? And he just started laughing and he said, you know, our experience has changed really dramatically up here, and we actually like the experience Franklin offers because it offers our guests something different. So we work very closely with everybody up there. Yeah, are we competitors? We absolutely are. But there's enough out there for everybody.
You touched on in your career in your early days, 20 years ago, when you were involved in helping to solidify the Predators and the Titans to come to Davidson County. One of the things that we have in our bag of things is that our community is very, very involved in sports. Mm-hmm. Our average age here in Williamson County is about 38, 39 years of age. I'm reminded every year, one time a year, that when we have the Williamson County Fair out at the Ag Park, just how many young people are in our community. Now, I'm always reminded on a weekly basis just how many young people in our schools are, but I am really amazed at the avenue of sports and what that plays for our community. You may or may not remember, and he was just recently introduced into the Hall of Fame, was a guy by the name of Jerry Reed. Jerry Reed had his name on a soccer tournament here for years and years out at the soccer complex. And that was the early days of soccer. We had our traditional sports in our community, the baseball, football, basketball. You still had a very strong presence of tennis, although tennis was not, there wasn't a court on every corner. Golf is steady increase, but we didn't have those award-winning golf courses. But soccer all of a sudden could be played from ages 4 or 5 up on a field, put some lines down, put a goal back, real cheap infrastructure cost. And through the avenue of working with the TVA and some land that they had owned, we were able to secure a soccer field here. And over my years of being involved here, I've noticed how the proliferation of sports in our community has grown. And it's in those areas of amateur sports. I am sure we have men and women live in our community that are huge in the sports industry, from college football analysis to MVP of baseball for the World Series last year to many, many other men and women, ice skating, Olympics, you name it, we've got people here. But I'm always amazed at just how important amateur sports is to our community. Just soccer, go back to it, some 25 years later now, that on any given Saturday on Downs Boulevard, it may be one of our largest cities. There are people coming in from not just our local areas, but they host tournaments, and it is just unbelievable how much they fill up our hotels with. So as we go forward, I know we've had this conversation before, and most of the public is aware, we're looking at getting involved into a sports authority, some activities for our amateur sports, not to exclude professional sports, but there's no room down here for another football team or a hockey team. But there may be a place for a training facility as we go down. But the decisions we're making now affect how our community is involved for the next 20 and 25, 50 years, long after you and I are gone from the working environment, that will have an impact on how your industry continues to grow. And I just don't think there's anyone better suited for that than you, because of your history, because of your background, but because of your love for the sports. I am amazed, just simply amazed, when I hear you talk about being at some seminar or some trade show where you're trying to encourage people to look at coming here. And people, in your early days, you used to have to say where Franklin, Tennessee, or where Williamson County was at. Not today.
Not today. And that's a great reference. Our Nate Gaw, who's our sports sales manager, was just at a show last week. And he said that, how the shows work is about a week before the show, these appointments open up. And you can go in and pick who you want to meet with. But the event planners can also pick you. So, you usually will go in and we'll be like, okay, after having met with the Parks Department and different venues, what do you want to host? When do you have availability? Then we'll go in and choose who we want to meet with based on that. Well, this last show, when the appointments opened up,
And you're where at now? Where are we at when we do this?
Let's see, where was he last week? Orlando, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. When the appointments open up, we usually go in, but before Nate could get in to set up his 60 appointments, 40 of them filled like that because planners were already looking for us, and they wanted to make sure they got on his schedule. So he said by the time it was done, he maybe had to chase 5 or 7 planners down, otherwise they filled his schedule up. So Franklin is very well known in Williamson County for for our venues. At Downs Boulevard, the soccer complex can't be matched. And the city, what they're doing with baseball and football is just high level. And, I tell people here all the time when they say, tell me about Williamson County, what's it like there? And I said, well, one, it's beautiful and this wonderful, friendly community, but it's a community that's only going to do things to their very best ability, and I think that shows in our venues. So people know that Ag Expo, we love working with the Ag Expo. We've put volleyball and soccer and all sorts of things at the Ag Expo. So sport planners know us, and they want to be here because, one, we're centrally located. 2, we have all the infrastructure. We have restaurants, and we have things to do because, as you know, and you've taken your kids and grandkids around, they play in the morning, and then they might not play again till late afternoon. Right. They got a big old chunk of time to go have some fun. Well, we've got fun for them, and they can do that. Soar Adventure Tower with the new putt-putt golf course, people are just filling that place up because they're looking for those activities. So we're very well known in that sports industry, and people want to come here and be with us. We've had sports planners call us and say, we want to come such and such weekend, and we've checked the calendar, and we say, oh, Ag Expo is not available, or the hotels aren't available. And they've traditionally held it on that weekend, and they said, you know what, we'll move our weekend because we want to be there.
I think it is important to realize that for you to get the message out, we have to have success. And as people are watching this show, I know that there's some inconveniences for people that live here trying to get to the local grocery store, to the mall to go shopping, or just to get around our community. But these visitors help hold our property taxes down.
Yes, they do.
And it's not just a little bit. It's to the tune of
$505.20.
I knew you knew the exact number.
Down to the penny.
But without them spending those dollars here, then it's a different complexion that we as financiers of how do we fund the schools and the roads and all the other things we do. They do help to hold those property taxes down. And I think sometimes we fail to realize, yes, there's some inconvenience, and yes, there is some extra traffic, but to me, it seems to have worked in our community. I think Davidson County is probably experiencing that same thing. I mean, I don't know what it does for their tax base, but when I look at what our community gets out of it, if nothing else, it's the whole of property. Now, that's not to say that our children don't enjoy it. Right. And we're seeing an increased presence in our senior sports activities, too. Pickleball, which is not even, I always like to talk about it, wasn't even on our radar 10 years ago. Today, when we build or remodel facilities, we put pickleball courts in because that's a very, very important part. And that was designed for around 50 or 55 years of age and up. It's also being played by many 35 to 50-year-old men and women. Great sport, great cardiovascular activity without a lot of skill set and knowledge of how to play the game. You can go one time and then have a good time.
Yes, and I think what's important about the tournaments, and I had a parent tell me this the other day, locals play in those tournaments. So for anyone who has children in any kind of youth sports or traveling team, I have friends that are on the weekends or on the road every weekend because they're going to a tournament. So I've got some parents that have called me and they said, thank you for hosting that here because that was one weekend that we could sleep in our own bed. Mm-hmm. So it's not only people are coming in, which we love, and that's what we're trying to do, but we do help the quality of lives of some of our locals that maybe don't have to travel that weekend. And I think that's an important element of what we're doing as a whole.
So what's on the horizon for our county? And I know we've got all kinds of things we always dream about, but how do you see, if you were to put a crystal ball, or for folks my age, we'd say, what do Ouija boards say? What does it look like out there 5 and 10 years for sports and tourism business? How do we keep this going, not only in our community, but statewide too?
I think for our community, what's really important and something that we're working on now, which is part of our long-term strategic plan, is expanding that visitor experience throughout the entire county. You know, when I first got here, we had a lot of day trippers. Well, you know, somebody comes in, they spend 4 or 5 hours with us, and then they get in their car and they go down the road. Well, on average, that day tripper is going to spend about $53 while they're here. Well, if we can get them to stay the night and expand our experience here, they're going to spend on average $233 a day. That's what we want them to do. So what we need to do is expand our experience so they think, well, I'm just going to go in and visit the house museums and I can do that in half a day and then I can move on down the road. Well, no, guess what? You need to go to Thompson Station because they had a battle there and you can learn about that battle. Well, now all of a sudden we've expanded that experience and they need to stay the night because if they do want to do some shopping and eating, now they can't do all that in one day. So I think that's really important is working with our other communities because they all have stories to tell too. And how do we help them tell that story? Fairview, for instance, they have that amazing Bowie Nature Center. It is beautiful with tons of activity. Well, how do we tie that in better to expand that experience? Because we want those people staying in those hotels. And we have a lot of hotel rooms opening. If everything in the pipeline opens for Williamson County, we'll add 2,400 more hotel rooms to our county. If everything opens in the pipeline in Nashville, they're adding 11,000 hotel rooms. So between the two of us, we're adding quite a few rooms. So we have to think creatively about what that experience is and how long we can get them to stay to help fill these hotels so we can have a healthy community from that regard.
When you think about the tourism industry and you think about it on a statewide basis, it also brings a lot of jobs to our state.
It does.
We've concentrated our efforts on at the local level, but when you look at tourism from the state level, and I'm not sure of this, but I'm pretty sure that probably Dollywood fits up in there as number 1 or number 2 place that visitors go and are attracted to. Number 3. What's number 1?
Nashville.
Okay. You're talking about the area.
1.
I was talking about the event.
Oh, yeah, the event. Definitely Dollywood. I mean, that place is...
Well, no question Nashville has it because it's got so much to offer.
It does.
What's number 2?
Memphis.
Memphis. Elvis.
And then Dollywood and the mountains are number 3. And I think what you just mentioned about Nashville is really important, and it's something that we're doing here as well because every destination to expand their visitor space should offer a diverse experience because not everybody's going to come here because they love country music.
Correct.
Right? In Nashville. And Nashville has really great history and they are really heavy into the fashion world now. So they're giving them another reason to come in. And I think we're doing that really well here in Williamson County because not everybody's going to come in because they want to know the Civil War story. We do have a lot of people come in to do that, which is a great part of what we offer. Some people are going to come in because of our outdoor activities and the beauty of what we offer down here. Some people come in because we have really amazing art galleries between Leapers Fork and Franklin. So I think expanding or having a diverse experience is really important to expand your visitor base.
And so as you look into the future, you've got your sports going on, you've got the sports authority, we'll have sports council, we'll have more of that. All we're going to do is expand more into that area. That'll take time.
It will.
We've got the Civil War issues that people do travel far and wide to come in and see the many events, whether it's the Lotes House or the cemeteries, you name it, we've got it that's coming here. But as I look into my crystal ball, how do we continue to push that experience? And a lot of it is through advertising. I know that you do a heavy dose of advertising to attract those people, and whether it's in online. Talk to me a little bit about how do we get that message out? I'm very fortunate that since I've been a little boy, Southern Living, I know we don't always mention names on here, has always been a magazine that seems to have been on the coffee table either as a boy growing up or even to the period today. And you will always see some section of that referring to Tennessee, and oftentimes you'll see advertisements or, hey, look at our area too. What other methods are we getting? I know the social world must be an unbelievable social media.
The digital world is really important to our overall advertising and messaging. And what I like about the digital world is that it's a place that we can be really competitive because it's not as expensive. Twice a year we advertise in Southern Living. It's a great magazine for us, but we just don't have the budget to be in there every issue. I feel like, having been in tourism my whole career, I've never seen it as competitive as I see it today. And one of the reasons is, back in the day, you had your tier 1 cities, which were the Orlandos and Chicagos and Atlantas that had these huge convention centers and nobody could touch them. And there was certain conferences that were only going to go there. Well, all of a sudden, the tier 2 cities started building bigger convention centers, like Nashville, for instance. So now Nashville's getting into what was called the tier 1 city space because they've got the convention space to do it. The same's happening on the advertising side. Now that digital is a more affordable medium for every destination to advertise, we're getting in space that we've never been in before because we can put advertising out there and we can compete with the Chicagos or we can compete with the Nashvilles. And that's really good for us because if you take a smaller budget and you got to run print advertising or broadcast advertising, you probably have a 3-month campaign. It's going to be in your heavy season of tourism. Digitally, we have a 12-month campaign. So we can promote 12 months out of the year and tell people why they should come here, whether it's January or whether it's July. And it's so flexible, you can change your ads at any time. So we can promote something that's happening in the winter that's really cool and then turn it around and change it all up for welcome to spring. And that's great to have that flexibility.
Ellie, we've got 2 minutes left in our show. I'm sure that there's something that you'd like to discuss or say that I may have overlooked. So I know you have a staff. I know they work hard. I know you're proud of your staff. You brag on them quite often. But other things that I might have overlooked in the last couple of minutes of the show?
I think that, thank you for mentioning the staff. They are amazing, and they come in. I tell you, they are passionate. They are resourceful. And I think what's important for us is that we've tried to build a brand that people can relate to. And not only visitors, I was walking down the street the other day and a couple was standing there and they had a map and they looked lost. So I stopped and I said, may I help you? And they said, wow, we've been all over your website before we got here and the experience we're having is exactly what your website promised. That's really important for us because that authenticity is important. But I also think it's important that we have really great leaders that want to see growth and success, and we have the support of that. So I thank not only our staff, but I thank you and our other leaders here in town for the support of tourism.
Well, thank you. And oftentimes we are criticized, and you always have to look at the traffic issues that tourism's bring, but growth in general brings. But it is a great county. We have 6 great cities, and I know you get along and have to work with all of them just as we do. As success of our cities goes, our county and vice versa. But I also want to say hats off and appreciate what goes in Davidson County and Rutherford County and those other surrounding. We're truly regional partners, and we have to continue that. And there's a little piece for all of us in that big pie.
There is.
Ellie Chen has been with us. A lot of information to digest. Thank you for what you do, but thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
I'm Roger Sanderson. We'll see you around as we look at other activities throughout Williamson County at the next time. Have a good day.
Out of the Wild by David Harris. Sound ricochets through the valley, across the river, bank to bank. From the porch you hear the wails that sound at first like sirens. The dog rises, nervous, and sniffs and stays close. He knows his cousin's call. Just beyond Manhattan's nighttime glow, coyotes haunt these hills. In the morning, you grab the train for Grand Central while wildness sleeps in your backyard.